Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe. And today we're going to be talking about color contrast with only CSS. Okay, so second show of the week. Obviously a little bit of a visual change if you noticed the earlier screen there. Actually, last night I sat down and I was like, I want to make kind of a better image for Wireframe. It was a little bit boring to me, so I sat down and for about 3 hours trying to figure out what is going to be the look of the thumbnail and potentially short outro stuff. And I sat there and I was mulling it over and working in the web, and I was working in Photoshop, Illustrator, and I just came out with something that I didn't like. And when I got home, I said, you know what? I'm going to try a template. I've never really been for templates because a lot of the times when I'm using a template, I would be really disappointed in terms of the ways that you would be able to customize it, or just making sure that it was consistent for different kinds of medium, especially when it came to like presentations. Like presentation templates have always been the worst for me. They're always, again, kind of like either boring, or I really just don't know how to use a template such that everything stays like consistent through the whole thing, which is why like I have my own presentation system that I've built actually probably twice at this point. So usually I'm like very against templates. Plus I usually end up feeling like, oh, I don't want to pay for a template. I know how to design. I should be able to do that. But I really just had so much difficulty kind of getting inspiration for the look. But after doing a quick search, and I found out that Adobe has Adobe Express via the web, so you could just edit the thing on the web, found a template that I actually really liked, that really piqued my interest, made a couple of adjustments, and that's the new look. So I hope that everyone enjoys that new look. Again, I think it's really fun, really engaging, and I'm going to be using it for the thumbnails for YouTube, as well as outros for all of the shorts that you might see on YouTube or potentially Instagram. So that was fun. I'm really happy about that. But let's get into the topic. All right, so actually yesterday I posted this on LinkedIn and Blue Sky that I was working on this problem for my day job. And the problem is that we have this kind of theme system where it's entirely possible that we might need to generate like lots of themes. I'm not talking like dozens, I'm talking like hundreds. And that's very overwhelming. Now, if you know some of my work before, usually you'll hear me say that I can theme any interface with less than 3 dozen tokens, which is completely accurate. The unfortunate reality is that in the day job that I have in implementing this particular thing, there was a lot of, let's call it, collaborative differences that ended up having a lot more tokens than I, again, believe that we need. Additionally, this system of tokens that we have is older. It's about 6 years old, and legacy in terms of the way that I think about tokens now. So a couple of reasons why there's a lot of tokens there. But because there's a lot of tokens, in the probably hundreds, we can't expect people to be curating all of those values for, you know, hundreds of themes, if that's the possibility, right? So what we really want is some way to have a person choose only a few values and be able to effectively cover the entire theme in one shot. That's really what we're looking for. So obviously there's like processes that could happen here. You could do things like token operations to make modifications and things like that. But one of the things that I was really interested in was, could we just do this in CSS, right? Could we just say, here's the half a dozen variables that are really critical to determining how your theme is supposed to be expressed. And can we kind of inform what those colors would be and other values based on those additional or initial values, right? It's kind of like if you've seen Microsoft Fluent's UI Builder or UI Designer, they have like 3 colors that you would choose, and then it would kind of inform all the other tokens. So the basis behind this, of course, is that most brands will have some primary color, the color that represents their brand, that they want to convey across their interface. And it would be really nice if we could just determine what the accessible color is for that particular color, right? And normally what we'll do that is we'll put this into some color accessibility checker, look for the contrast to be, at least 4 to 5 over 1, and then we would be good to go, right? But it's usually like a manual process to see, okay, is it black or is it supposed to be white, especially for some of those kind of colors that could be in between. So what if CSS could just do it itself, right? And I think we've asked for this for a long time. In fact, it's actually part of the module level 5 color spec for CSS to actually just have a function that says, give me the black or white based on the existing color that you provide in this function, which is really cool. And in fact, actually, before I go any further, there's a blog post that I'm going to go ahead and show you right now that I wrote yesterday. Oh, interesting. This is what the problem is. Oh, okay. All right. So let's go over here. The problem I'll talk about in a little bit. But anyway, so in this post here, we have this contrast color function. You might have heard of it as a different kind of thing. I think it was like color contrast before, and you would give it some colors and options and stuff like that. But now they simplified it a little bit based on this, where you just give the color in here, and then you get the contrast color of that, and it gets assigned. So this isn't in any browser yet. It's not an MDN, can I use, none of that. So it's not even something that you could even try out right now. It's literally just a thought. But every time I think about this in terms of CSS and accessible color, I think about this post from Josh Bader a few years ago, where he basically is able to figure out what the accessible color is meant to be for any particular RGB, as long as you are able to pull out each individual channel. So you have to define, what the the red channel is, the green channel, the blue channel, all that stuff. You have to define what that is immediately. So this is a little bit cumbersome, obviously, for every single color you need to do this. So there would be great if there was a better way, and there is now. So if you, again, read on a little further, what I introduce is the CSS relative color syntax. And you can identify that by having a color function in CSS, but using the from keyword. And what that gives you access to is that once you provide a color in here, right, it could be kind of a hex or whatever it is, then you can have access to the individual channels. So what does that mean? That means that if color here is some mix of red, green, and blue, maybe it's something that's up here, 28, 150, and 130, then what we could do is we could create a new color, a new RGB, by just basically taking, as an example here, the red channel for each one. So if the red channel up here was 28, right, then we would make a new color that was RGB 28, 28, 28, right? So that would be like a very dark gray that this thing would produce once you enter this like other color that we had up on top here, right? So that like is able to transform the color. And the really cool thing about this is that we can do like calculations on this. So this represents a number, this R represents a number. So I can, make it a little lighter, make it a little darker with a little calc. Now, this is really the missing piece to what Josh was trying to do up there. So basically what I did is I took that formula, I simplified it a little bit and made it a little like a clamp thing. So it goes from 0 to 255 for an RGB channel. And then this is the same formula that he had in his example, just again, simplified a little bit. And again, what this is trying to do is it's trying to determine, given the particular color that you provided, should the result of this color be black or white, or really a channel of it? Because you have to do this 3 times, right, for the R, G, and the B. So you have to do it these 3 times. Now, of course, simplifying it is really nice, so I basically throw that into a property syntax here, and then I can reuse this kind of formula as channel in, you know, an actual declaration here. So this is a little bit more, you know, nice to look at as opposed to all those formulas, all those things that are a little bit scary, where you could just assign, you know, a color to a variable. It could be a token, could be anything. You could put that on your background, and then you can have an RGB function that just, you know, takes whatever that color is and then puts the channels in, and then you get the accessible black or white. And if you want to, you can go ahead and hide all of that in like this, you know, contrast color variable, and then now a person can just use it, you know, like this, you know, and there's the example that's over here. So if you want to go ahead and change this, right, you can go over here. And as you can see, as I go between light and dark, you can see how it goes back and forth between the light and dark text. And again, there's no JavaScript really happening in here. I mean, I'm lying a little bit because this is in JavaScript just to assign the hyphen color property, but that's the only thing that's happening. I'm just assigning whatever the color value is to a CSS custom property, and then doing all the work that I'm talking about up here. So I thought that was really cool just to start off with, and got a lot of good feedback from the community, a lot of reposts, so thank you for everybody who reposted this. I think it's going to be really helpful for people who are, again, just trying to ship a CSS file and make things easy, as opposed to having to include a build process and trying to find accessible colors that way and all that kind of stuff. I think it could really simplify some things. Speaking of simplifying, so after this was shared, I put it in the Design System Slack channel. I had a couple of people kind of respond and jive with it a little bit. And one of those people was Matt Stum, formerly of Stripe, I believe, and now working as a lead in design for a startup. And he's here in New York. We chat every once in a while. And he is a color maestro and ended up getting a little bit inspired, and he ended up making this a lot better. So I want to show you what that looks like, because it wasn't in the original post, but I did update this. So you can see here, he made some improvements, and this is basically the improvements that's happening here. Now here's what I'll say. Like I said at the bottom here, I am not good with color math at all. In fact, if you don't know, I'm actually color deficient. Like, I can't tell colors very easily. So I'm not a person who would normally even choose color. So I'm really not in like the color space, figuratively and literally speaking. But Matt certainly is, and he has some really good blog posts about this stuff. But as you can see here, what he's done is he's used some even newer CSS stuff, which is like the min and the max and the rounding functions that we have. And he's really simplified what's going on in here. Because, and this is the key here, is that the WCAG contrast algorithm uses the XYZ's Y value as its definition for luminosity. That's the key, okay? So when we're talking about contrast, I'll bring it back to me over here for a second. When we're talking about contrast, when it comes to accessibility, we're talking about the luminosity value, right? There's some, again, color math that's trying to determine what that is, but effectively we're trying to see the human perceived luminosity, about how light or dark a particular color is. And that's that 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio that we're trying to get to, that we're trying to create that number through a luminosity value. And what Matt is saying here is that this XYZ color space has a representative value inside of it that represents perceived luminous, the Y apparently in this space. So we could just take the Y and then do calculations just on the Y, right? Just because luminous is all we need. So that's what he's doing here, right? In this code here, again, he's doing, actually this is a regular color function, so it's a little bit newer, but it's the same kind of thing as you doing an RGB or an HSL, but what this provides you is the ability to put in a space. So he's put in the XYZ color space, which again, I've never heard of before. So you take the given color, you put in the XYZ space, and then for each one of the channels, which I'm assuming is going to be the X, Y, and the Z for this, he's going to take the luminance value and do a little bit of math on it. Right, so he's going to subtract the luminance from this 0.18, which I'm again assuming is some part of the color math for contrast for luminance, and he's making sure that it is a max, so it's probably a negative number. Oh no, it's a fraction. It has to be a fraction between 0 and 1. Right, so that's what he's basically putting in through here, and out gets a, let's look at the code pen, the same kind of thing. So his color thing is over here. So if I change this, you could see in the back over there that the color is changing between the red and the light and the dark. If I do this, bring it over here, there it goes. Yeah, so I really like that. It's obviously a lot simpler. Of course, the question that I, of course, have, and I didn't look into it too deeply, is what the support is for all the rounding functions. I did play around with some rounding functions. I have a feeling, without actually looking it up, that I think one of the browsers probably doesn't support the rounding function, so maybe a problem. My approach is a little bit more baseline in terms of being available, so if you want to go ahead and pop that in right now, you should be able to do that as opposed to the rounding functions. But I also suspect that if you work at it a little bit, you can potentially remove the rounding thing that's happening in here and actually just use a clamp, right? So I'm assuming that maybe you're just using the clamp to put it between 0 and 1, and then use the math in there. Maybe that'll work a little bit, with a little bit of funky stuff. Potentially, I actually don't know. But anyway, I thought that was really fun. I think that's going to be helping out a lot of folks out there when it comes to creating like color contrast stuff. And I think it's going to really help me in the day-to-day making these themes where it's just basically like this one theme template proxy thing that you just get a couple of values and it kind of shows everything else right there in the CSS. So I think it's going to be really helpful. I can't wait to try it. Should be cool. All right, so that's what I wanted to talk about. If you have, of course, any comments, you can reach out to me on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, anywhere else place that you find me, or even on the comments here on YouTube. That would be cool. I totally forgot that I have comments on this thing now, right? Super cool. All right, so the last thing I actually want to talk about here is I did talk about some events earlier this week that are going on, but I totally forgot that DDX is happening tomorrow here in New York. I don't know why I forgot. It's weird. But yeah, DDX is a design conference that's here in New York, and I have a couple of people who I know that'll be speaking. I have a friend of mine, Bailey, who works as a senior VP over at Twitch in design operations. She'll be speaking in the morning. And then another friend of mine, Ryan, who's head of design over at Priceline, is going to be speaking in the afternoon. But there'll be other speakers there. I'll be there. I'll be there with my wife as well. A couple of other design system folks, I believe, will be showing up in the New York area. So hopefully I see you tomorrow if you're going to show up there. I'm sorry that I didn't mention it earlier. Yeah, that's going to be over on Friday. In fact, I actually have the website up in the event that you wanted to see what it looks like, just in case you were curious. So, but yeah, they have a New York thing that's happening tomorrow, and apparently a San Diego one as well. So yeah, if you're going to be there, that'll be cool, and I will see you there. It'll be wonderful. And then past that, I think that's basically it, right? So hopefully that was helpful for you today about talking about the CSS color contrast stuff. I do have some more work to do when it comes to that kind of approach when trying to tint the color with a different, primary or something of that nature. What does that look like? I'm definitely going to need a lot of help with that because, again, I'm color deficient. I don't know if it's going to be helpful at all. But looking forward to seeing how you feel about the new format, or I should really not say the new format, but more so the new platform and new media. It should be good, right? Let's hope so. Anyway, play nice in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.